The Steve Bell cartoon, which Steve Bell published, although the Guardian didn't want him to publish it, or didn't publish it in the Guardian, Steve Bell published it on the internet, and it was condemned by the Guardian as anti-Semitic. It's not immediately obvious that this is actually a tribute, and it's a tribute to a cartoon which was published in 1966, and that in turn followed a photograph taken of Lyndon B. Johnson, and is all about Vietnam, which was an extraordinarily questionable policy to get involved in the Vietnam conflict to help the South Vietnamese and prevent Ho Chi Minh from uniting Vietnam under communist rule. It was therefore a proxy war against Russia. And in 1966, just before he had gallbladder surgery, he committed 200,000 US soldiers to the war, and then a further 550,000 in 1969 and so on. But after having surgery, he lifted his shirt and showed the press this foot-long scar. And the cartoon by David Levine, a brilliant caricature, by the way, suggests that the scar was actually a map of Vietnam. So from that point of view, the Steve Bell cartoon is a tribute to the David Levine cartoon and a tribute to the Vietnam conflict, this policy of containment which went drastically wrong. There's a very good case to be made for cartoons that are tributes to earlier works and so on. But the problem here is, first of all, this is, from the British point of view, this is an obscure cartoon. It's very much part of the American tradition, and David Levine is utterly brilliant. But it's not part of our thesaurus, our lexis, our vocabulary. And it would need to be contextualized seriously. And in the meantime, the presence of a scalpel, which is the Steve Bell edition, changes the cartoon completely and makes it significantly more redolent of the Shakespeare play Merchant of Venice and the idea of Shylock cutting a pound of flesh from Antonio's body, from the merchant's body. And I think it's a brilliant piece of work. But the Guardian was quite right not to publish it without it being heavily contextualized. To make that cartoon work, you would need to have an article to accompany it. It simply doesn't read on its own. It's easy to misinterpret, and it's easy to see this as a very, very grim piece of anti-Jewish propaganda as well as anti-Israeli propaganda. Now, I think there is a lot to criticize in Netanyahu. First of all, the fact that he took his eye off the ball so much that Hamas was able to invade. And secondly, the ferocity of his attack on Gaza is utterly deplorable. And now there's reports that there's phosphorus weapons being used. This is abhorrent. We protested about this. The international community protested about the use of such weapons in being used by the Kremlin in the war in Ukraine, and I think we should do no less than protest now. And it's really important, I think, that each situation is looked at independently, evaluated, and though we cannot but condemn the Hamas terrorist attack, and though we cannot but sympathise with the huge suffering by the Israeli people who have been so savaged by that Hamas attack, we must also sympathise with the countless Palestinian civilians who are now being punished for the acts of a small terrorist group that has invaded another country. So punishing a large group for the actions of a small group, this is bestial. This is barbaric as well. And I think it probably amounts to a war crime. As far as I know, Israel is not at war with Palestine. Israel is at war with Gaza. Gaza is not a country. And I think the term war is wrong. I think what we're seeing is a retaliation and a revenge strike, and I think the plan is to move in on foot and to go house to house and search for Hamas terrorists. It will be very, very difficult. And also to rescue the Israeli hostages. But phosphorus should not be part of the language of response, and the missile strike should not be part of the language of response. This is out of proportion, and this is punishing civilians for the acts of terrorists. It's not civilized.